The state of Kansas continues to repeal laws granting special rights to homosexuals. I'm Matt Barber, Vice President of Liberty Counsel Action. Again, in studio today is Shawn Akers, Liberty Counsel's Vice President of Middle Eastern Affairs. Shawn, our friends over at One News Now write that another Kansas town might be rejecting an ordinance granting special rights to homosexuals. It will be on the ballot in November. In Salina, which is north of Wichita, the city council in May approved an ordinance for homosexuals and transgendered people in housing, public accommodation, and employment. Robert Nolan of the Kansas Family Policy Council tells One News Now his organization worked with local citizens who objected to launch a petition drive, and they received more than twice the number of petitions they needed to get this on the ballot, Shawn. And here's what's interesting about this. You know, the left, particularly the homosexual activist lobby, they are very crafty, and they are so adept at setting up this straw man and then just pummeling it to death. And the straw man is this notion that there is some kind of rampant discrimination against people who engage in homosexual behavior or people who like to dress up as the opposite sex. Simply is not the case. Shawn, we know in reality there may be the occasional anecdotal case where somebody gets fired from a job, particularly if it's a Christian company or something, for engaging in immoral sexual behavior, whether it's adultery or homosexuality, or if it's a guy who just gets his jollies dressing up as a woman, whatever the reason. There may occasionally be an instance that arises, but in every instance, this becomes a national story on every front page in all of the major networks, and homosexual activists lift these individuals up as a great, a martyr in order to prove the case that people who engage in homosexuality must be granted special protections based upon their sexual proclivities. Simply not the case.
Matt, this is one of the reasons that elections at every level are so important. Literally, local, state, federal elections, you're putting people in office, and those people come to office with a worldview and with an agenda. And what you see so often with these far-left leaders is that their agenda is going to trump every time the will of the people, and what they're hoping for at best is acquiescence, because acquiescence is a form of support. If you don't oppose something that someone else is trying to have, then in some sense you're supporting it. And in this case, what you see is an issue, like you're pointing out, that is not on the forefront of the American mind. It's not something that's important to the vast majority of the American people. They don't deal with it on a regular basis. It's not in the kind of volume or, for that matter, seriousness, but yet because a group of elitists who have their own ideas about the way our country should operate superimpose their own self-image on the body politic. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what you see, is all of a sudden a non-story becomes a national story.
And Shawn, you're absolutely right, but it's even much more sinister than that. Highfeld Bloom, who was Barack Obama's recess appointment, she was so radical that they could not get her approved through the Senate. Obama had to appoint her through recess appointment. This woman was a lesbian activist, law professor at Georgetown Law. She had advocated on behalf of polygamous marriage, polyamorous contractual marriages, if you will, complete sexual anarchist radical. She is the primary framer of INDA, the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, which is essentially the federal version of this Kansas ordinance. It is reintroduced every year. Every year it has yet to pass. Thank goodness. She has said this, that essentially where newfangled gay rights come into conflict with our enumerated First Amendment guaranteed religious liberties, she said, where within earshot of my friend Bob Knight, who heard her at a conference, she said this, quote, "Gays win, Christians lose," where those two conflict or clash, that homosexual behavior always trumps religious liberty, which is just nonsense when you consider that it's in our First Amendment, our first liberty is among free speech and others, religious freedom. The goal here is not to protect necessarily homosexuals and cross-dressers from discrimination. The goal is to compel not just acceptance, but even celebration of these deviant sexual behaviors under penalty of law. The goal here, the target, they have a bead on religious freedom, particularly the Judeo-Christian worldview relative to sexual morality.
You know, Matt, you're hitting the nail on the head. You know, Thomas Sowell wrote a book several years ago called The Vision of the Anointed, and it's not hyperbole at all to say that there are a group of people in the United States in leadership positions that honestly think you're not capable of making your own decisions and you don't know what's best for you or the nation. And they set out to build the nation in their image. And we have that in such a way that it has reached a new level. And that's what you're identifying, is it's not just go along and get along anymore. It's not just this group of elitists saying, you've got to tolerate what we want to do. It's now we're reaching that place where they're saying you're going to have to celebrate what we want to do. You're going to have to adhere internally and externally. Now, I don't know about you, Matt. I've been accused of saying that this takes on religious tenets on the part of these activists. But if you look at it and you see that we are using the state in this case to force blind support, blind celebration of a lifestyle that many people in the United States disagree with, it does take on a religious tenet. It says that you're going to accept it. You did the quote earlier about Christians versus the homosexual lifestyle. But if you think about it, it's also the American people and the Constitution of the United States and anything else that gets in the way.
Well, and the goal, again, is to get the official government stamp of approval on sexual behaviors that for every major world religion, thousands of years of history and uncompromising human biology have held to be destructive emotionally, physically, spiritually, certainly, and immoral. So this is a zero-sum game, to again borrow from Highfeld Bloom. Now, am I advocating that willy-nilly people just go around firing people because they happen to define their identity based upon these disordered sexual proclivities? I'm not. No, I'm not. But we do have a guaranteed constitutional right to associate with people of like mind who share our values, our morals. I often give the example, Shawn, of a Bible bookstore owner. What this Kansas law would do, what INDA would do would be to say that if a man, came in a miniskirt and high heels and said, I want to work for your Bible bookstore, and the Christian owner said, no, I'm sorry, your values and your lifestyle do not comport with Christianity. They are in direct conflict. Under these types of laws, they would be sanctioned under penalty of law for discrimination. That's not what our founding fathers intended.
No, in fact, that's exactly what they hoped that they would create a bastion for, that you're not in a place where a state can force you into situations that conflict with your worship of God. This is exactly, we talked earlier in the week about Thomas Jefferson's letter to the Danbury Baptist, and it's exactly what he was ensuring, the Danbury Baptist, is that worship of God is between you and God, and government can't take any action whatsoever to force you into actions that cause you to be in conflict with your Creator, at least in the Judeo-Christian sense. When we see laws like this, and they're being promoted very aggressively, and they're being done so in a way that are going to cause exactly that, it really is a clarion call to the American people to stand up and be the American people.
Our founding fathers called homosexuality a crime against nature, yet now there are those who seek to enshrine it as a specially preferred and protected status. Liberty Counsel stands in defense of sexual morality, biblical sexual morality, and the natural family. Go to lc.org to find out how you can become part of Liberty Counsel's ministry, or give us a call at 1-800-671-1776. We need your support. We need your help. Stand with us as we stand up for the family, as we stand up for God's design for sexuality.